I'll start with the demonstration. I have my SQL server installed and I'm logged onto the virtual machine where my SQL server is running. So let's get an overview of the SQL server first and the services. So to verify whether the services are running and what is the status of each of the service, we have the option through SQL Server Configuration Assistant, SQL Server 2019 Configuration Management. When you launch it, it will give you a lot of things which are covered in this session, which you will see in the presentation also. As an example, you can see the services available here. All right, the running services, integration services running, full text filter daemon launcher running. So for example, Polybase is not running, Polybase engine is not running, agent is running. So to check the configuration of each or any of these service and make the changes into the service configuration, you right click on the service, go to the properties, and then you check that what account is used. I'm here to advise you that when you will be doing the backup or doing copy database command, when you will be running the sequence of copying the databases, you will get a problem, you will get an error. The copy will fail due to ownership permission on the data directory, because ultimately it is the agent which will be doing. The first error will come, the agent is not running. Then it will fail due to the permission on the folder, on the data folder where the backup is taken for this account. So you need to see and verify who is the owner of the account when you see the service. So right now, for example, log on using this account name, and service can be configured here. Right now start mode is automatic. By default this service is disabled, by the way. All right, so you have to go to this option and enable it. Let me talk about as an example, this service is not running and it is stopped. It is automatically configured. These are automatic. This service is manual, for example. So full text, it is manual service. Let's change it to automatic. So check the account and check the service and change it here, make it automatic and apply. This is how you can change the service. This is similar to the daemon process in Linux, that we use the command systemctl enable, systemctl disable, and the mask also, that it cannot be started. All these features are in the GUI here. This is what we have in managing the services. Now we have configured the services, what all services are running, what are required. The important one being the SQL Server service, the main. Then browser, if you have multiple instances of SQL Server running, then browser is required. It is mandatory to run because it will search and it will allow the connectivity to the other servers. And the agent is for the task like database copy and other tasks. This must be running. Integration services, when you are using export import, you will need this service to be running. So all these services are basically giving you one or more features, allowing you to do one more activities on the server. Then we have network configuration. This is 32-bit. I'm not doing a 32-bit configuration. For me, this is the configuration. So if you expand it, you see the protocols used for the server. By default, you may find certain protocol disabled. So like native pipe may be disabled. So you can right click here itself and you can check the properties and you can enable or disable it. So you can change the property directly here. Similarly, the native client configuration, client protocols. So when you click on you double click on this native protocol, you can see what all protocols are enabled. So default behavior might be slightly different from these because I have changed them. So this is the configuration manager, which gives you facility or features or facility to manage the services, networking, protocols, and in fact, if you go to the details of this protocols, TCP/IP, and go to the properties of it, you will see IP addresses also. What all IP addresses the service will be listening on. So multiple IP addresses are listed here. For example, IP1 active enabled IP addresses. This is IPv6 address, and this is my IP address of my machine. Local IP address, that is a static IP address, and if you see, this is the local host. They are ordered, and you can see multiple IP addresses. The services are listening on these IP addresses and port. Similarly, if you want to change the port, right now default port is 11433. You want to change it, you can simply edit it and click on apply. This is editable here. So wherever you have to change the IP address, you just open this dialog box, make changes to the IP address where the server is listening on. So changing the connection setting, the IP address of the server and the port number where it is listening on, it is that easy. So just make changes and apply, restart the server, and you are done. Similarly, named pipe, you click on this details and you will see where the pipe will be stored on the pipe SQL query. Under this folder you will find the detail. So it is enabled. So this is the service. Similarly, if I work on other configuration parameters, I can go to the instance and management studio. This also offers a lot of configuration facilities. For example, initial configuration, generally we do the instance configuration particularly. So let's talk about the instance configuration. That was the connectivity and overall broader, the server related configuration, the protocols, port, the services. Now assume that all the services are running and you have instance running and you want to configure some properties inside the instance. Now for that purpose, you right click on the instance and click on properties. This gives you a huge features, list of features which can be changed, and they are grouped together, they are categorized. Every page has a special set of features. For example, general features, product name, you double click and you can change whatever are editable, you will be able to edit them. I'll show you. This is information, so you can change it. Let's see the memory. So this is memory, minimum server memory, then we have maximum server memory, then other memory options, then processes, what all processes, automatically set processor affinity mask for all processes, or that's a default affinity. What is this? Definitely, obviously we have to check and we have to change and we'll to explain. Right now, identify the interface where these values are, that will help you. Security, authentication can be changed here. The default you selected was mixed mode during installation. You want to change it now, you can do that using security settings. Like if you want to make it Windows authentication, you check this and restart the service. It will use Windows authentication. If you want mixed mode, change the radio button. Login auditing, which we have a session on auditing. So you have to enable or disable, or what all you want to log can be changed. Similarly, if you have proxy, you can specify the proxy account. These are all tracing. I will talk about the tracing also on day 4. So this is the setting. Moreover, interestingly, you know what? Whatever changes you make, you can create a script file and you can generate a SQL script here. That is TSQL, transact SQL script, after the changes are done. When you feel that yes, everything is done for me. This similarly connections, maximum number of concurrent connections allowed. 0 means unlimited. If you want to restrict them, you can change the values here. Like if you want 10 connections, not more than 10 connections, if you want to balance it. Similarly, we have default connection options. Then after that, we have database settings, database index fill factor, backup and restore, default backup media retention days, how many days media backup will be. Of course, you may have hundreds of questions at this screen, but remember we have a corresponding session. So hold on your questions and don't forget your questions, because we are going to discuss them in right time. For example, backup related setting, global setting for backup, we will come back to the same setting again. Then we have a database default location. You want to change the default location. Remember, whatever changes you make here, you have to restart your server. Then we have advanced settings. Everything can be changed here. If you go carefully, network packet size, retention, then we have parallelism, locks, max degree, query weight, the settings, and then permissions, what all permissions you want to give to specific users, that is logins and roles. For example, these are global settings, instance level permissions. So for example, we created one user yesterday, and what all settings, what all permissions you want, you can see that. So we'll talk about these permissions and security topic today. So we'll come back to this again. After making these changes, you want a SQL script to see how changes will look like. So click on this and you will see the SQL script of your changes into this query window, and this is what you have done. So this is what you have changed, and you will see all the changes, and you can generate these scripts, save them for later use, and you can modify the changes, configure it, because ultimately we prefer using query rather than GUI based changes. So this is what we have done on this. Let me finish this part. This is instance configuration. Some changes will not take effect until server is restarted. Obviously, there are some changes which require server restart. Similarly, we have a database level settings also. Check your database, right click on the properties, and then you can see the properties, same set of permissions. That was instance level, global, and this is database level. The files and file groups, we'll talk about the storage in detail. Options for the database. Right now, for example, this is update statistics is true or not, auto shrink, default cursor, the default settings. We will talk about these parameters as well. Then after that, we have mirroring. Is comprehensive subject actually. It takes 3-4 hours to understand. Then we have log shipping. Of enable log shipping on any database is possible. This log shipping and mirroring are excellent tool. Think of them as a replication. Then query store. So these are database options. So these are the configuration settings at global level. That is the entire server itself, the services configuration, then networking configuration, then instance configuration, then we have database specific configuration settings. Now if you go back here, and once more I would like to talk about that properties. In fact, I'd like to talk about the work surface area under this facets. If you go and you will make changes here, this is the server, and this has facets. How do you pronounce it? I really don't understand how to pronounce this, but yes, you can enable and disable this here in this configuration. We'll talk about this also. So this is what is the general overview, the demonstration of where you have to make changes. You have to explore these features after I finish this. Session 5, common post installation tasks. You have seen the demonstration. Now you will understand with the screenshots used from the demo and similar settings, what all possible you might have missed during the demo, that will be covered here. Post installation setup and configuration. First is verify remote connectivity, whether it is allowed or not. Enable TCP/IP protocol if it is disabled. Assigning a static port, you have seen the demo. Configure surface area, that is for tracking the DB. Then connection options for SQL Server 2019, start stop SQL Server services, verify automatic startup of services, start stop pause. Now at a glance, I'm sure that you have seen each one of them during my demonstration. Let's go through one by one. Verify following parameters after the installation of Microsoft SQL Server 2019. Verify that remote connections are allowed. Enable TCP/IP protocol if it is disabled. Assign a specific static port if you want, and configure surface area. Verify the remote connectivity. You can do it through SQL Server Management Studio. In the this Object Explorer, right click on the instance name and then properties. In the server properties, click on connections. So you see, right click on the instance name and then properties, click on connection, then verify. Under then we have the connections, we'll discuss that coming up, and verify that allow remote connection is set to true, or it is checked, or it is enabled. This is I was talking about the connections, and this is the page I shown. I have not gone through all the pages, but remember I talked about it. But yes, concurrent connections I was talking about. By default 0, which is unlimited connections, and allow remote connection. This is the particular setting I was referring. Allow remote connections to the server. This may be disabled by default, so you have to check it. Allow remote connection. So if it is not checked, remote connections will not be allowed. Though you may have TCP/IP protocol enabled, you may have firewall setting configured. Sometimes these are silly things when we actually practice. RAM, I've done firewall is fine, TCP/IP is fine, networking is fine, but why I'm not able to access my SQL server? So probably you forgot to set this property, set this parameter. Enable protocol. On taskbar SQL Server 2019, we go to the configuration manager. You have seen the configuration manager, and go to the protocol, and then by default, for example, named pipe is disabled. Similarly, check the TCP/IP protocol. If it is not enabled, right click on it and then go to properties and then enable it. A warning message is displayed. Click OK to continue. That is about the restart of the service. Click the SQL Server service on the left pane, then right click on the server service and then restart the service. We have seen that how to restart the service. Assigning a static port. This is a one-time procedure to be performed on the server that hosts the instance of SQL Server to indicate which protocol to use when communicating with remote clients. This procedure uses TCP protocol, TCP/IP protocol, and default port number is 1433. When connecting to a named instance through a firewall, configure the database engine to listen on a specific TCP port so that appropriate port can be opened in the firewall. It is a security measure, and you must address this. Open a specific port if you want to assign a specific static port to SQL Server 2019. Assign it, change the value as I demonstrated, and then open the port in the firewall. How do we do that? Launch this configuration manager. In the console pane, expand SQL Server network configuration, expand protocols, and then double click the TCP/IP. In the dialog box, in the IP addresses tab, all IP addresses were appearing. If you notice, IP1, IP2, and all. In fact, this static IP, local loopback IP was also available. Then in the properties area, for all IP ports, change the port number. If it is not there, change it to 1433. If you want to change to some different, you can change that also. After settings the protocol, you must restart SQL Server service. So in the console pane, click SQL Server services, and then in the details pane, right click on the service name and then restart. And this was the screen grab of what you have seen, what I have demonstrated. Configuring the surface area, that is tracking DB. Log into the SQL Server Management Studio. In the Object Explorer, in the left pane, right click on the instance name and click on Facets. The View Facets window is displayed. From the Facets drop-down menu, choose the surface area configuration. So first you have to select this, and after that you have to select this surface area. So Facets is surface area, and then you enable it, disable it. By default you will see it is disabled. Disable, enabled, and you select the enable and set it to true, and then you are done. In the Facets property, change the value of this CLR integration enabled facets from the false to true. This is the specific setting for this surface area. By default it is disabled, it is false. Click OK to close this and close the SQL Server Management Studio. Connection options for SQL Server 2019. You can connect through SQL CMD. It is just like your SQL Plus in Oracle. Command line option. Management Studio, which you have been seeing. Connection to another instance of SQL Server, and through the program, inside the program, using a connection string. For example, data source, initial catalog, user ID, password, all these possibilities. Even the certificates and encrypted connections are allowed. Starting, stopping SQL Server services. You have multiple options. Using SQL Server service directly from the server manager. Yesterday I demonstrated, I remember that you can directly do it from the server manager. When you start instance of SQL Server database engine, you are starting the SQL Server service. After you start this, user can establish new connections. You can also do it through SQL Server Configuration Manager. The SQL Server Configuration Manager combines functionality of multiple tools, network tools, server network, client network, and service manager. So this is another way to do it. Automatic startup from the server manager on Windows 2019 server, which we are working. So click on local server and then scroll down. You need to be in full screen mode in order to find the setting, and I was struggling because my window was resized window. So you have to be on full screen, then the scroll bar will appear, go down, then reach to the service and search for SQL Server related services. And here also you'll find the same thing. You can manage the services: start, stop, pause, restart, enable, disable, automatic start, manual start. All the settings are possible here also. So as I said, right click, stop, restart, pause, all facilities. Start, stop, pause. To change the status of start type, status or start type field, you need to go to tools and services. This will take you to the services.msc file, which is actually services management in any Windows environment. That is possible even here also. The same file will open, same services will open, and let me show you this. So just open this services.msc file. It will show you all the services. Reach out to the Microsoft SQL Server services. So you can see that SQL Server service, agent, SQL Server. Right click on, go to the properties, same thing, start, restart, pause, and then properties, enable, disable, same process. That is login using what account, recovery, dependencies, and the service status, enable or disable or pause. So start, stop, pause. You've seen the general tab. Here it is available: start, stop, or pause, or resume service. That's all for the session. Thank you very much.